Hi, I'm Callie and welcome to Kapowski Reads and welcome to another reading vlog. If you've watched my quarter one review video, you will know that I'm a little bit behind when it comes to my reading goals. So I'm going to try and remedy that, try and get a bit of a shimmy on and make some progress. And I want to focus on reading physical books from my TBR shelf because it's the physical books that take up the space. I am mainly going to be reading, in fact I'm only going to be reading books that I consider to be TBR veterans. That just means that they are books that I have owned a physical copy of for over a year. And these are my 3 tributes that I'm going to be reading. I've got a little bit of a mixture of genres and some of them are very highly recommended, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to be starting with The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. This is a sort of historical, I want to say historical kind of heist book. I have been told there's kind of like fantasy elements to it, but it's not a fantasy book. I got this book in late 2023. I wanted to read it and then I put it aside because I was going to read it for the Diverse Baseline, I think it was February, historical fiction pick. And then I didn't read it, quelle surprise. And then I kind of put it off because I was like, oh, it's historical fiction and I'm not the biggest fan of historical fiction. But then I was talking to somebody about it and they were like, it's not, like it is set in the past, but it's not historical fiction. And then I thought, what a fool am I? Because I could have been enjoying this book for so much longer. All I know about this book is that it takes place in Paris, which I think anyone who looks at the cover would go, yes, yes it does. So it's set in Paris in 1889. We have a sort of unlikely gang of characters, a bit of a gaggle, and they are on a quest. There seems to be some sort of like houses, a secret order, there are artifacts. I think this is like a kind of heist kind of book. Again, I'm going in a little cautious because I'm not the biggest fan of historical books. I know it's not historical, but it's set in the past and it might be historical. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of heists, but I love a quest, and a heist is a kind of a quest. But I love things set in Paris because I am a basic woman. So I'm intrigued. I have heard from a very good source that I'm going to love this book. So I'm taking that and going and jumping straight in. If I love it, it is a trilogy and I would not be mad about having a new sort of beloved series. Next up is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is actually on my April TBR list. It's very short. It is a murder mystery where a body shows up in a bathtub and we go from there. Murder mystery. Who is it? Why do they look like somebody else? Why are they in this bathtub? Where are their clothes? Yeah, it's kind of all I know. I've never read anything by this author before, but I love a murder mystery and I'm hoping I'm going to love this too. My boyfriend gave me this and he gave me book 2 in this series. I don't know if they sort of have to be read in order or if you can just sort of dip in and out, but I'm going with book 1 just in case. And my last book that I'm hoping to read is going to be Luster by Raven Leilani. This is about a young woman called Edie who is in her early 20s. She is not in the best place in life. She is having an affair with a married man and finds herself living in his family home with his wife and his kid. And she is an artist. Edie is an artist, and that's kind of all I know. I have had this book highly recommended to me and I've been told it's a bit chaotic and it's a bit of a Marmite book. I'm either going to love or hate it, but the people telling me this are the people who have loved it and tend to have loved similar books to myself. So I'm going in kind of going, oh, I hope so. I'm also, this is not really relevant to anything at all. Also in love with this lipstick shade. I'd look terrible in it, but I can appreciate it on other people. So these are my 3 books that I'm going to be reading in this vlog, and I'm excited about them all and I'm hopeful I'm going to love them all. Yeah. we are off to, or at least I am off to, a fantastic start to this reading vlog. I finished book 1, The Gilded Wolves, and I loved it. I also have kind of coordinated my ensemble with the book. This was unintended. I'm not mad about it though. Maybe I should do that more often. I finished this book and I loved it. And I shouldn't have loved it. I mean, it was fantastic, so I should have. But if you look at all of the things that this book entails, on paper, it sounds like I wouldn't like it. It's historical, but it is sort of speculative fiction. So I'm okay with historical when there's speculative fiction involved. There's a heist. I don't like heists and I don't really like historical generally, but I loved this. I need to somehow obtain, probably through purchasing, books 2 and 3 in this series. My library does not have them, so next time I'm in town, I'm going to have a look at the bookshop, see if they have them. If not, I'm going to have to order them and I can pick them up in Waterstones the next time I'm in. That's going to be my plan. I think I did say what the books were all about, but just in case I didn't, this is set in 1899 in Paris, and we kind of have 4 families who are in charge of like everything. One of the families has fallen, one of them has been declared to have no more legal heirs, so we've kind of only got 2 families in charge of everything. These families are rocking about like the British Museum, collecting stuff that doesn't belong to them and claiming it as their own. And we have our little gang who basically collect stuff through theft, but you're kind of rooting for them because the artifacts were not obtained legitimately, so they're just taking them back, and it doesn't. I'm justifying crime here, so I suppose it's more treasure hunting than heist. That's what I'm gonna go with. I loved all of the characters. There are 6 main characters. The book is not too long, and I did sort of think this is a lot of characters. There's always one you just don't like as much as the rest. Not the case in this book. I loved them all of them. Tristan was my favourite. A little cinnamon roll. Love them all. And all of the characters not only were lovable, but they were distinct, and it was very easy to tell them all apart. And I feel so often when there are books with loads and loads of characters, it's hard to tell them apart sometimes, but not the case here. I feel each of these characters could have their own side quests, and sometimes they did, and I really enjoyed every perspective that I got in this book. I kind of got like a found family vibe, which is one of my favourite things to read in books. I love a gorgeous found family. I love these strong friendship elements, which is what I got. I love the drama because, oh, there was drama. There was drama galore. I loved the sort of bubbling romances. I didn't need the romance, but it kind of worked to enhance the sort of stakes in this book. I loved the, I want to say it was almost like steampunky kind of vibes. There wasn't magic, but there kind of was, but it could maybe be explained away by science. And that is something I just enjoy so much. I feel there was so much thought that went into, for lack of a better description, I'm just going to say the magic system in this book. I was invested. I'm still invested. I need to know more. I want to know more. I love these characters. There is a garden. So I suppose a main character is Severin. He is from one of the families that was declared to no longer have legitimate heirs, and he's kind of looking to get acknowledged as being the legitimate heir so that that family is no longer declared to be no longer around. He is our kind of main character. He is a hotelier, and he has this gorgeous hotel in Paris with this massive, these sprawling gardens. There's a spider, and I hate spider. No, I'm not a spider girl. I'm not. But I was even loving the spider, and I'm like, oh, I would feed that spider. Like, not myself, but I would feed him whatever spiders eat, flies. Gorgeous. The visual elements of this book just worked so well. It was just such a rich tapestry that was woven, and I really just felt like I could see this world, no, the world of Paris, but with the hotel and the world, it wasn't a world fair, what was it called? Exposition Universelle, which I think is kind of like a world fair type situation. There were catacombs, there were crypts, there was a quest. I suppose you could call it a heist. I'm choosing not to. I'm gonna call it a quest, some adventuring, and I just thought it was, so tense. There was a ball. You know, I need a scene in a book with a ball. It just has to happen. There were costume changes, there was deception, there was secrets, lies, grand reveals. I'm invested. I love this book. I'm gonna give this book 5 stars because now that I've talked about how much I enjoyed it and I've coordinated my outfit with it, it can only really be 5 stars. Yes, loved it. I need the other 2 books like now. I mean, I'm gonna read the rest of the books I plan to read for this vlog first, but I need to finish this series. I'm so invested. Will they? Won't they? Like, I think they might, but I want them all to. Yes, I'm in. I will be back hopefully with more rave reviews in a little bit. Oh, this book was so good. Update time. I went to try to get books 2 and 3 of the Gilded Wolves series. We don't have them. And my branch does not have them. So that makes things a little bit, maybe a little bit tricky, because I don't like doing a book order for like, you know, 2 books. I think I was okay with just going into the shop to pick up, you know, books 2 and 3. But now that I know I'm going to have to buy them online, I'm thinking maybe I wait a little bit longer and then I can buy a few more books and maybe get that free shipping. I love free shipping. I did see a whole bunch of books that I would quite like to read, but not enough to sort of prioritize. And I feel that considering my TBR is a little bit, it's not out of hand, but it's bigger than I would like. Hence this video where I'm tackling my TBR. I'm gonna just not buy those new books right now, and I will get them when I've read a few more physical books off of my TBR stash. That is my plan. I have removed 1 more book from my TBR list though, because I have finished Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. And I didn't love this book, and I didn't like this book. I hated this book. And I feel really guilty saying I hated it because this was a gift and I have another book by this author, which apparently her books get better as they go on. That's good to know. The Only Way Is Up. This book focuses on a nude corpse, and I mean the nudity isn't a big scandal here, the corpse is, but it's the 1920s. The nudity is also the scandal. A corpse shows up in a bathtub. That corpse looks a lot like somebody who is missing, and therein lies our query of, well, who is this? Is this the missing person that we think it is? Why are they in the bathtub? And my favorite question, who done it? You know, and why, of course. And I love a murder mystery. I really do. I love even older murder mysteries. I'm a big fan of an Agatha Christie book, and I did realize, I did do some sleuthing myself, and Dorothy L. Sayers and Agatha Christie were friends, so that's quite nice. It probably is completely irrelevant information, but I think it's nice. But this book is no Agatha Christie. The first, say, 20 pages of this book were quite interesting. They sort of laid the foundation of what's happened. There's a body. What are we gonna do? We get to meet our sort of detective character, our unofficial detective, if you will, which is Lord Peter Wimsey. And we get to meet the person who's kind of almost being framed for this murder. We then have about 100 or so pages of just and then the last 40-50 pages are interesting. They're very fast-paced, which is not like the rest of the book, and they're a little bit wild and a little nonsensical. There's a lot of, in the end of this book, I was just sort of going, why? Just why? I did have to keep checking if this was the first book in this series, and it is, but the reason I had to keep tracking was because I felt like there was some sort of expectation of me knowing the characters. I don't know Peter Wimsey, not Peter Sayers. I've never read anything by this author or seen any of her adaptations. I know there are some, and I didn't like Peter Wimsey. He was your classic, for the time period, rich man with too much spare time, and he used that spare time to sort of solve crime, which is fine. That's a fine use of your time, but he was so unlikable, and it felt like the author was trying to portray him as being charismatic and being, you know, such a fun character, but it just didn't work. It sort of took like the worst qualities of Sherlock Holmes and then just a generic rich guy, and that was my Peter Wimsey, and I didn't care for him or his sleuthing. I didn't feel like there was anything special about this character, which could be the whole point. I didn't like him. I didn't like the story. I didn't feel surprised at the end because it kind of was obvious, and a murder mystery can be obvious and that's fine, but if it's obvious then the rest of the book has to make up for that with, you know, fun characters or wonderful writing. And I just don't feel like this, maybe it's a case of this didn't stand the test of time for me. This book came out in the 1920s, so it's over 100 years old, and perhaps I've been spoiled by reading more modern mysteries, but like I say, it's probably an unfair comparison, but I've read Agatha Christie books that came out in the 1920s and I had a great time with them. My other huge issue with this book was the racism that happens more often than in sort of vintage classic books than it does in contemporary books, but it was very uncomfortable to read, and I felt that very much took away some enjoyment from the book. I didn't have a good time with it. I don't recommend it, but I'm delighted to have one more book taken off of my TBR shelf, and I'm hoping that my next book I like a lot more. My next book is going to be Luster by Raven Leilani. I have the Gorgeous Waterstones edition. I bought this when they had the Gorgeous Waterstones edition. I was umming and ahhing about what to read next, and this book was popping up on my Instagram feed being highly recommended, and I thought, yes, I need a book that is gonna, you know, fix the sour taste that this left for me, and I'm hoping it's going to be this one. It can't be worse. I'll be back in a bit with an update on Luster, and we won't be thinking about this book anymore. No. I have now finished my last book for this vlog, Luster by Raven Leilani. Much time has passed since my last update because that last book put me in a bit of a reading slump, and I didn't read anything. I did, but I didn't finish anything for another week. I've had another day in the office, and I read this, and I had a really good time with this book. I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and I suppose that's what happens when I buy books years pass and then I read them. I knew this book was about Edie, who was an artist. She was 23, she was having an affair with a married man and ended up living in his family home with his wife and their child. I knew that their child was adopted and that Edie was black, the husband and wife were white, and their adopted daughter was black as well. That was kind of all I knew. I have had a few friends read this and say that they absolutely hated the main character, and I know why they hated her, but I loved her. I feel she was flawed, as we all are. I feel she made terrible decisions, but I'm also going to give her grace for the fact that she was 23. She was alone in the world. She had no safety net. She was her own safety net. She was struggling to keep her head above water, and she did things that morally probably aren't the best, but I feel like she was never actively seeking to be cruel. So you might be thinking, well, I'm saying that and she's having an affair with a married man. The married man was in a relationship where they had agreed that him being with other women was okay. I mean an open relationship. That's what I mean. I'm not so sure if the wife was also seeing other people, but she was aware that he was seeing Edie, and there were rules and things. So there wasn't like a betrayal so much. I really liked the way that Edie kind of bonded with her lover's adopted child, sort of teaching her things that are very helpful for her to know, but that her adopted parents didn't really have any way of introducing her to things. So she got to sort of almost play it like a big sister or a big cousin kind of thing, and I thought that that was really sweet. I really liked the relationship between Edie and the daughter. I thought it was just quite lovely. The way in which Edie's fall happened, it just escalated very quickly, and I felt really bad for her. She lost her job, and she lost her job for a valid reason, but at the same time she wasn't the only person who was doing that, and I feel that her punishment was far harsher than other people who kind of got away with doing the same thing but no repercussions for them, but just for her. And she was angry at the world, and I get it, because why would you not be angry at the world? It was understandable. I felt like Edie grew so much as a character. She was very self-aware. She was just lost. She was an artist and she was just struggling to create. And I feel that she went through a journey in this book, and I did too, reading it. And I just found myself rooting for her. I wanted her to succeed. I wanted her to be able to get her mind back in a place where she could create once again. I feel this is almost a kind of like perhaps vibe over substance kind of book, even though there is a lot of substance. The book tackles a lot of topics that can be quite heavy. We've got abusive relationships, power dynamics, there is racism, there is pregnancy loss. There's a lot of very heavy topics covered in this book, but there's also a lot of just like chaotic vibes, and I really enjoyed this book, and I really enjoyed this author. I liked her writing style, I liked her character work, and for me, I want to love the characters, whether they are good people or not. I want them to be interesting. The biggest crime a character can commit for me is to be boring. So I'm delighted that I have enjoyed this book. I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. Yeah, I'm going with 4. I feel confident with a 4. That does kind of bring my average for this vlog to like a 3, because I've got 4 stars, 5 stars, 1, and we'll never talk about it again. But I feel if I get rid of the one I don't like, then I'm winning. I'm doing great. I am delighted to be able to have knocked 3 books off of my physical TBR, and to have found a new favourite, a new series I want to just swan dive into, and to have read a book. I actually think Luster was featured on my first ever book haul, and I've been on Booktube for like 5 years. This is my 5th year, I think. I don't remember. If it's that long ago, then it is so long since I've seen my Glasgow friends and I miss them. But yeah, I'm calling this a success. Found a new favourite, got another 4-star, winner. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if not, let me know what you've been reading lately, and thank you so much for watching.